Black-eyed children. These entities are described as children typically between the ages of 6 and 16 with pale skin and unnaturally black eyes. They often appear in pairs and are known to approach individuals in isolated areas, such as parking lots or doorsteps of homes. Their behavior is marked by an unsettling calmness and a peculiar manner of speaking. They often request entry into homes or vehicles, invoking a sense of dread in those they encounter. Reports of encounters with these figures have existed since the late 1990s. The first widely recognized account of the black-eyed children was shared by journalist Brian Bethel in 1996. Bethel recounted an unsettling encounter with two boys in Abilene, Texas, who exhibited strange behavior and had completely black eyes. His story quickly spread across the internet. While some claim that tales of black-eyed children date back to the 1980s, it is Bethel's account that solidified their presence in modern folklore. During one week in September 2014, the tabloid Daily Star ran 3 sensationalistic front-page stories about alleged sightings of black-eyed children connected to the sale of a supposedly haunted pub in Staffordshire. The paper claimed a shock rise in sightings around the world. Alleged sightings are taken seriously by ghost hunters, some of whom believe black-eyed children to be extraterrestrial beings, vampires, or ghosts. Michellin Men. The Michellin Men humanoid or balloon men derives its name from its striking resemblance to the Michellin Man, which is the iconic mascot of the Michelin Tire Company. This cryptid is described as a humanoid figure with a segmented rubbery appearance, with limbs that appear to be composed of cylindrical sections. In May 1960, Antonio Ribera, a local teacher, was at a crossroads returning from a motorcycle trip when he saw a strange human-like being about 500 feet away. He described the creature as being red from head to toe and around 6 to 7 meters tall. His walk was like a robot with stiff arms. Another encounter with the Michellin Man humanoid occurred on Reunion Island in 1968. A farmer named Mr. Fontaine reported seeing 2 small humanoid figures near his property. These beings were described as being about 9 centimeters tall. It was of a bluish color, with white on the upper and lower parts, and the beings wore a metallic helmet that covered their faces. Fontaine observed the humanoids inside a transparent cabin. One of the beings was facing away from him, while the other turned to look at him. This encounter left a lasting impression on Fontaine, who described the beings' movement as mechanical and their appearance as otherworldly. Chuchunya. The Chuchunya, also known as the Siberian snowman, is a cryptid from the remote and icy areas of Siberia. It is described as 6 to 7 feet tall with broad shoulders, a large protruding brow, long matted hair, and occasionally bearing unusually colored body hair or fur. Reports of the Chuchunya date back to the early 20th century, with sightings primarily concentrated in the Yakutia region of Siberia. Indigenous peoples such as the Yakuts and Tungus have long spoken of this creature, describing it as a reclusive and elusive being that avoids human contact. Some accounts suggest that the Chuchunya is nocturnal, emerging from its hidden layers only in the cover of darkness. One of the most notable encounters occurred in the 1920s, when a group of Soviet geologists claimed to have seen the creature while exploring the remote Siberian wilderness. According to their accounts, the Chuchunya exhibited both curiosity and wariness, observing the humans from a distance before retreating into the forest. In recent years, the Chuchunya has gained attention beyond Siberia. Expeditions and research efforts continue in hopes of uncovering definitive proof of its existence. Grassman. The Grassman, also known as the Ohio Grassman, Kenmore Grassman, or Orange Eyes, is a tall bipedal creature that stalks the woods of Ohio. This creature is often compared to Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The Grassman gets its name from the small, hunt-like living structures or nests it builds out of tall grass. The Grassman is typically described as a large bipedal humanoid covered in shaggy, dark-colored fur. Witnesses report its height ranging from 6 to 9 feet, with some accounts even suggesting that it can reach up to 10 feet tall. The Grassman is often described as a shy and elusive creature, adept at avoiding detection. It is said to possess impressive physical strength and agility, allowing it to navigate the dense forests of Ohio with ease. Additionally, the Grassman is believed to have keen senses of sight, smell, and hearing, which aid to its ability to remain hidden from humans. The first prominent sighting of the Grassman occurred in a small village of Minerva, Ohio, in August of 1978, when the grandchildren of Minerva residents Evelyn and Hall Clayton, along with their friends, ran inside screaming about a hairy monster they saw in the gravel pit outside. When the couple went out to investigate, they saw what the crying children had described. It was a creature covered in dark, matted hair, sitting in the pit and fiddling with discarded trash. It was estimated to be around 300 pounds. The Claytons fled, but this would not be their last encounter with the Ohio ape man. The Claytons would see the Grassman many times after their initial encounter. One night, it was seen peering at them through their kitchen window. Hal ran for his gun, but the creature was gone before he returned. Days before the gravel pit incident, the Clayton's German Shepherd was found dead, its neck broken, presumably killed by the Grassman. The Ohio Grassman was later seen by the Claytons atop a hill near the strip mine at night. The next month, in broad daylight, the couple observed two hairy bipeds on the same hill. The area was later investigated by the police, and although there were no sign of the hairy humanoid, several faint footprints were found in the mud and a terrible smell still lingered in the air. Napoleon's Little Red Man. Napoleon Bonaparte, renowned for his military prowess, held a fascination for dreams, ghost stories, and ancient prophecies. He believed he encountered an entity called the Little Red Man of Destiny, a crimson dwarf who appeared to notable French figures over a period of more than 260 years. This entity, often seen near the Louvre in Tuileries Palace in Paris, was considered a harbinger of tragedy and disaster. The Little Red Man bears a striking resemblance to the prophetic dwarf from Detroit folklore known as the Nine Rogue. The first encounter of the Little Red Man was by Catherine de Medici when she came face to face with the creature during the construction of the Tuileries in 1564. Catherine encountered a gnome-like creature dressed entirely in red. She interpreted it as an omen of bad luck, given her role in stirring tensions between Roman Catholics and France Protestants, and avoided locations with the name Saint-Germain. And it was she who would later go on to induce the king to order the horrific St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of the Huguenots. She eventually met her end near Saint-Germain. King Henry IV of France would be the next person to see the Red Man, right before he was assassinated by an insane school teacher in 1610. Louis XVI, the ill-fated monarch during the French Revolution, encountered it in 1792, just before his capture. Marie Antoinette saw the being in the corridor of the Tuileries Palace on August 9th of 1792, just one day before a mob stormed the palace and ended the monarchy. Only a few months later, the guards claimed to have seen the Little Red Man in the prison where Louis and Marie Antoinette awaited their execution in 1793. During his Egyptian campaign in 1798, Napoleon encountered the Red Man. The entity claimed to have advised French leaders before and offered counsel to Napoleon. They made a pact, victory and triumph across Europe for a decade. However, the being warned of impending failure. Manta Man. The Manta Man is a strange flying humanoid creature seen in northern Chile. He has 4 limbs, 2 of which have large manta ray fin-like membranes connecting them to the creature's body. It is very vicious and has been seen devouring dogs. The first sighting of this strange being occurred on September 29, 2013. An anonymous witness claimed to have seen the creature rise from the tree line in Bustamante Park in Santiago de Chile. When asked to describe the animal, the witness claimed it was about 6 feet tall and looked very much like a manta ray. However, it resembled a gargoyle in that it possessed leathery wings. The witness later sketched the entity. The creature was sighted many more times in Chile after the initial sighting, and later even reported being seen hanging around in a church tower in Santiago. The Sandown Clown. The Sandown Clown is described as a 2-meter tall creature with human proportions, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a round head with identifiable facial features. Its skin was very white and had the consistency of paper, while its hand and feet possessed only 3 digits each, and its face seemed to have been crudely painted onto the surface of its head. 2 blue triangles seemingly represented eyes, while a flat brown rectangle served for a nose, and its mouth had thin yellow lips shaped like an oval, which did not move at all when it spoke or ate. Its hair hung down beneath its hat in sparse, frizzled reddish-brown strands, and 2 wooden antennae stuck out from the side of its head. It seemed to be wearing some type of clown costume, which consisted of a tall, pointed hat with a black knob or bubble at the top and a high-collared suit of red and green, to which the hat was at first attached. It wore dark blue gloves, but its feet were bare. The suit's trousers and sleeves were long and frilly. Whether the wooden antennae were part of the costume or part of the being's body is unknown. It was also carrying a microphone or tannoy system through which it spoke, and which is believed to be the source of the ambulance-like siren heard by the children. It lived in a 2-story hut or shack in a wooden area close to the lake. The sandown clown was a strange being encountered by 2 young children vacationing at Lake Common, Sandown, Isle of Wight, UK, in May of 1973. Following a sound like an ambulance siren, the children wandered across a footbridge over a stream and met a curious, unidentifiable being that had been described as a cross between a clown and a robot and an alien. It was a shy but friendly being and spoke kindly to the children for almost half an hour before they returned to their parents. It told the children it was frightened of humans and would not defend itself if it were attacked. It claimed to drink water from the stream after cleaning it and gathered wild berries, which it ate in a very odd manner by thrusting its head forward and somehow moving the berries back and forth between its eyes and then down its mouth. It could write in English using a pencil and paper. Upon being asked, it told the little girl that its name was Sam. When asked if it were human, it said it was not. When asked if it were a ghost, it is reported to have answered, "Well, not really, but I am," in an odd sort of way. All other questions about what it might be were answered solely with, and I quote, "You know." It seemingly vanished after the encounter and had never been seen again. Butterfly people. The butterfly people of Joplin are creatures reportedly appearing during the events of the EF5 tornado that befell on Joplin, Missouri on May 22nd, 2011. On the 22nd of May 2011, a devastating tornado hit the town of Joplin, Missouri, leveling the buildings and killing around 158 people. To those that survived, the children of the families would share stories about humanoid creatures that they nicknamed the butterfly people. While many children shared their story, one recurrent element is that as they were on the brink of death, the butterfly people manifested before them, protecting them from the falling debris of the tornado. They were described as beautiful humanoid creatures with colorful wings. Their appearance was so striking that the children affectionately dubbed them butterfly people. Some versions of the story even spoke of these beings carrying souls of those close to death or those who didn't survive the storm to the afterlife, comforting them on the way. Many theories have circulated as a result of this phenomenon. Most skeptics believe that the stories are as a result of mass hysteria, where stress from the near-death experience would cause people to believe they were seeing something supernatural before their eyes. Despite their lack of prior knowledge of each other, the children consistently shared similar accounts, with some drawing images of it. Martha's investigation led her to consider the possibility of these beings being more than mere figments of imagination. A book titled Butterflies at the Window, A Story of Butterfly People and Miracles in the Storm, documented these interviews, preserving the extraordinary narrative. Ausso 1. The 6-foot entity appeared to be a humanoid being clad in skin-tight black one-piece outfit that was claimed to be similar to a wetsuit scuba divers wear. Atop the suit was a pair of harness-like straps that crisscrossed its chest, below which was a metallic belt adorned with a large yellow 6-pointed star. Beneath the star was an insignia that the outdoorsman could not identify. The visitor had no detectable ears. His eyes were small and lacked eye eyebrows. The dome of his skull was covered with incredibly coarse hair, almost as if he had straw growing out of his head. The creature possessed a lipless, slit-like mouth that concealed 3 exceptionally large teeth at the top and bottom, a pair of antennas, and most alarmingly, a face that blended directly into its neck. The creature had a pointy, almost drill bit-like appendage sticking out of his wrists where its right hand ought to have been, and nothing at all on the left. The Ausso one sighting was an extraterrestrial sighting that took place on the 25th of October 1974. The witness was 41-year-old oil well driller husband and father of 4, Carl Higdon, who decided to take the day off to hunt elk in the northern region of Medicine Bow National Park, which is located just 40 miles south of his home in Rawlins. Upon encountering a group of elk, Higdon silently raised his heavy rifle, put his eyes to the sight, and took aim at the largest male. As soon as Higdon pulled the trigger of his magnum, he was astounded by the fact that there was no kickback from the rifle. What was even more perplexing was the fact that the detonation was absolutely silent. Higdon claimed that he was actually able to watch as a bullet left the barrel of his rifle and soared forward so slowly that it looked as if he was traveling through a wall of invisible jello. A bizarre alien being then slowly approached the terrified Higdon and asked him, "How you doing?" The hunter admitted that he was trying to stay calm when he weakly responded, "Pretty good." The entity inquired whether or not Higdon was hungry, but before he could respond, the creature sent a small, clear cellophane package floating towards him which contained 4 pills. The strange jawless humanoid then introduced himself as Ausso One. That was when Higdon's gaze caught a strange box-like object catching the sun rays in the clearing behind the strange creature. Intrigued by the awe at which Higdon was staring at its ship, the alien asked the hunter, "Do you want to come along?" Higdon shrugged his shoulder in assent. It was at this point that the time appeared to leap forward, as Higdon's next recollection was of being inside the cube-like craft. Higdon later recalled being given a tour of the Ausso One's home planet before returning back to his home. Crimean slug. The Crimean slug, also known as the Decoy slug, emerged from the shadows of obscurity in the late 1990s. On a chilly November day in 1998, 4 boys from a local elementary school in Decoy, Crimea, found themselves face to face with an otherworldly entity. As the boys returned from a restroom break, they heard an unsettling guttural noise behind them. Turning around, they were met with a sight that will haunt their memories forever: a horrifying humanoid figure clambering over a fence. This entity stood approximately 1.7 meters tall, with a disproportionately large head, adorned with big red eyes and a flat body. Its semi-transparent body resembled smoke, and its elongated arms terminated in 3 black-clawed fingers. The legs were straight and black, devoid of hair, mouth, nose, or ears. Frozen in terror, the boys watched as the creature approached them. They nicknamed it the Slug. Strangely, the slug laid its hand on one of the boy's shoulders. Although the boy felt no pain, his skin turned red where the entity touched him. The slug possessed an odd device with a button on its elbow, which it pressed using one of its claws. In an instant, the slug was sucked through the school building's walls, leaving its red eyes visible on the surface. The boys, deeply affected, fled back to their classrooms. They became fearful of using the restroom alone. Cloaked Men of Clifton Heights. The Cloaked Men of Clifton Heights, occasionally referred to as the Cloaked Woman of Clifton Heights, was a strange humanoid entity reported several times near Philadelphia in 1916. The creature was always described as an androgynous figure dressed in a long dark cloak that obscured most of its body. It was either described as a man or a woman depending on the witness. One of its most notable encounters was on a chilly Saturday night on November 23rd. Shortly before 11 o'clock, Joseph Austin was walking with a young woman on Walnut Street near Fairview Avenue. Suddenly, a tall person steps in front of them. This figure was clad in a long black cloak and hood, obscuring most of its body. The cloaked man's long hands reached out towards Joseph Austin's face, muttering something inaudible. The young lady was understandably frightened, but the entity didn't harm them. Instead, it swiftly turned and fled. News of the encounter spread rapidly, and within minutes, hundreds of men embarked on a hunt for the elusive cloaked figure. Despite their efforts, the Cloaked Man remained elusive. Several young men did spot a similar cloaked person, but it vanished before they could apprehend it. The entity seemed to defy the laws of physics, slipping away from its pursuers with ease. Kinnula Humanoid. In the frosty winter of 1971, in the remote Finnish village of Kinnula, an otherworldly event unfolded. Two women were driving from Kusamo towards Oulu, where they witnessed something inexplicable. This sighting will become known as the Kinnula Humanoid encounter. At approximately 8 p.m., the women noticed a strange light behind their car on the right side of the road. Their curiosity piqued. They turned their attention to the source of the glow. What they saw was a peculiar helmeted creature that stood before them. The entity stood about 3 feet tall, clad in a greenish-brown suit. Its helmet featured a faceplate reminiscent of a scuba diver's mask. The Kinnula humanoid moved in a series of small jumps, crossing the road in front of the women. Its agility and peculiar manner of movement left its witnesses bewildered. Neither women seemed interested in investigating the matter any further. As fascinating as this incident was, this would not be the last nor the most frightening encounter that human beings would have with this entity. On a snowy, overcast afternoon in February of 1971, 21-year-old Peter Aliranta and 18-year-old Esko Juhani Snek had spent their entire morning cutting down trees in the forest near the village of Kangaskaila in Kinnula, Finland. As dusk settled, they decided to call it a day due to the fading light. That's when the extraordinary unfolded. Alirantra, having just turned off his chainsaw, noticed an odd metallic object hovering at treetop level. It defied explanation. A shape resembling two saucers stacked atop each other, approximately 15 feet in diameter. But the real shock came when a small green-suited humanoid descended from the hovering craft. The being was described as being 3 feet tall with its entire body covered in a green one-piece suit. On the front of the head was a faceplate that was described as being akin to that of a scuba diver. Although the creature had arms and legs, the suit gave no indication of hands or fingers. The apparent structure of this suit seemed to be akin to the deep-sea suits divers wear to protect them from the pressure of the ocean's most severe depths. The entity seemed to defy gravity as it floated down 6 feet to the snow-covered ground below the ship. It was then, much to Alirantra's alarm, this creature began to approach him. Much to the lumberjack's surprise, the being did not sink into the snow but continued towards him with short, stiff, gliding movements, akin to that of an astronaut skipping on the moon. Aliranta described the motion as almost robotic. The creature eventually turned back towards its saucer. Aliranta now ran in pursuit of the little green man. When he got closer to the UFO, Aliranta claimed to have noticed other vaguely humanoid figures through 3 windows on the top side of the vehicle. When the alien was just 9 feet away from the craft, it levitated into the air in an odd fashion, floating towards the opening from which it had come. Aliranta lunged and grabbed hold of the heel of the being's right boot with his bare right hand. It was then he was overcome with a flash of pain as the material of the creature's suit burned like a hot iron. The wounds caused by the contact with the boot were, according to reports, still clearly visible 2 months later. Aliranta instinctively leapt backwards, allowing the entity to glide back into its ship untouched. The moment the alien disappeared into the saucer, it began to emit a soft buzzing sound. The craft slowly started to ascend off the ground with what Alirantra described as a weak gust of wind, but no smoke or other scents were evident. As the saucer rose skywards, the circular portal at the bottom closed, and within 15 seconds, the UFO had disappeared into the atmosphere. Following the UFO's departure, both Aliranta and Snek claimed that they were unable to talk and had difficulty moving for nearly an hour following the event. The only evidence that remained of the bizarre occurrence was the rounded prints the saucer had left in the snow. In the years following this event, some have suggested it was a hoax perpetrated by a local radio DJ who put the lumberjacks up to the ruse, but there are others who insist that this is a genuine encounter with alien creatures. The Hampton Court Palace Ghost Skeletor. The Hampton Court Ghost refers to a figure seen in a CCTV footage near the Hampton Court Palace on October 2003. This palace is famous for its association with King Henry VIII and his 6 wives. CCTV footage captured the entity, forcefully flinging open fire doors near the clock court. The figure was seen in a long, robe-like cloth, allegedly haunting the palace for a couple of days or months. The incident and its skeletal appearance lent him the nickname Skeletor. The figure was first reported in the early 2001. The security staff were first to encounter Skeletor. A visitor, too, also recorded her sighting in the palace visitor's book. She described glimpsing a spectral man near the same doors. A similar incident happened in 2015 but was later debunked. Abarimon. Abarimon are a legendary race of Himalayan humanoids with backwards feet. The name Abarimon comes from the Latin prefix ab, meaning at, to or within, and arima, meaning rocky mountainous country. Together, this can mean mountain dweller. The Abarimon were first described by Pliny the Elder in his book Natural History 711. He considered them to be native to India. A similar story is told by Aulus Gellius in Attic Nights. The Abarimon were humanoids with backward feet. Despite this, they were still able to run at great speed. They lived alongside wild animals and were vicious themselves. Attempts at capturing them failed because they were so savage. They were said to be found in the valley of Mount Amaus, a place now called the Himalayan Mountains. Folklore says that the Abarimon breathed in air only of their own valley because the air was of special quality. This made them impossible to breathe any other type of air and were unable to leave their valley.